Episode 11 of Cady's Corner, rocking and rolling here, presented by Godzilla Media and sponsored by our friends over at Mohawk Honda, Johnstone Supply, and our good friends at SeatGeek, who I'm just going to mention real quick over at SeatGeek. Hey, there's a lot of great events going on, whether it be concerts, sporting events, so on and so forth. Well, if you go to SeatGeek.com, looking to buy tickets for those concerts or sports events, whatever it may be, you can search for the event you want. If your total ticket buy is over $50, use the promo code GOZ. That's GOZ. Get yourself $20 off your purchase. That's right. Any ticket purchase over $50 at SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code GOZ, GOZ. You get $20 off your order so you can enjoy the summer with some great events going on around the capital region and beyond. Thanks to our friends at SeatGeek. And it's a little dark in here, so we're just gonna there. Oh God, wow. Oh,
Uh-oh. A little
sitting,
stunned by that.
sitting too close to the light. And yeah, as you can see, joined by my friend Ian Nicholas from the Amsterdam Mohawks. He is the online voice of the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League squad that has been off to a pretty hot start thus far. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But Ian, thanks a lot for coming on today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Just preparing for the Mohawks game tonight on the road against the Dragons. Enjoying my time here in the capital region for the first time, I guess, and really settling into my new role at the team.
Yeah, just you mentioned being around here for the first time. Really, that's because and obviously, if you're saying that, you're not a native of Capital District.
Yeah.
You're from a little further east in a state called Connecticut. Just
Yeah.
talk a little bit about your time, growing up in New Canaan, and when you came into the realization that being a part of sports media was something you were looking to get into.
Of course. So yeah, I grew up in the nearby town of Norwalk, but I say I'm from New Canaan because it really shaped me into who I am today. And that's because I played football, youth football for New Canaan for a couple of years, really loved it, although I was awful. I mean, I'm 5'7", I'm the slowest guy you'll ever meet. They clapped for me when I made it through the laps lines and all that good stuff. Anyways, I love the town of New Canaan. I love the kids I was playing with. My parents realized that too, and they decided before eighth grade to move from Norwalk to New Canaan so I could really join my friends and be in a school system I really enjoyed. So at the end of eighth grade, I saw electives I could pick for high school. And I knew I really loved football and basketball and a couple other sports, but those were my two favorites. I wanted to do something in the sports realm moving forward. It wasn't going to be playing. And if I wasn't playing, I didn't think I'd be able to coach. So what would it be? I love talking about sports. I'm an only child, so you could find me in my basement all the time playing Madden and NBA 2K on my Xbox, literally calling the game by myself in my basement alone. And maybe I started realizing, well, if I could talk about New Canaan high school sports, maybe to an audience or anything like that at all, I never done anything broadcasting in middle school. Maybe that could be a possibility through a TV broadcasting elective. And my high school station, NCTV 78 at New Canaan High School, unbelievable and so well funded for just like a public access channel run mostly by students with some teacher advising. So did that from year 1 to year 4 in high school. Absolutely loved it. Was able to go on our Friday announcements live every week in front of the entire school as our sports reporter, and then also did the play-by-play for a ton of our sports with YouTube live streams, multiple cameras, graphics, like a small college level production every week, multiple times a week, invaluable reps for a high schooler. And I was really able to fall into that, soak that up, became the station manager senior year. And then also when I was off the school in the summer, I was able to do a sports broadcasting camp led by Bruce Beck, the News 4 New York sports broadcaster who's been there for 2 decades and has become an awesome mentor of mine. And through that camp and through the early days of TV broadcasting my freshman year, that's when I knew this is what I want to do. I have to stop playing football, even though I didn't really play on the field, but I was still on the team. I have to fully commit to this. And that's what I did for the final 3 years of high school.
Now, before we get into the college decision you ultimately made, let's just kind of rewind for a quick second. First off, I remember Bruce Beck. Doesn't he also do some stuff with the Mets occasionally?
He does stuff with, the Giants in the preseason, the New
Okay.
York
Yeah.
Giants, when they do their preseason games and they're on NBC. He's all over the place, though. You can find him, covering. I mean, he was in Tampa covering, Rangers Lightning a few days ago. I mean,
Right.
he is New York sports. He does Olympics. He's all over the place. So I'm sure you've seen him covering a Met story because he's such a good storyteller, and he will tell that story if it's a New York sports story. And I didn't know much about him before I did his camp. He came into our class like back end freshman year, pitched his camp, asked the class, who wants to do what I want to do for a living? And I was the only one who raised my hand. And I went up there and I read a story about Odell Beckham. He's like, you did a great job. You should do my camp. Did a good job of selling it. And I'm happy I did it because he really helped me fall in love with sports broadcasting.
And then when you mentioned the amount of production value that was put into what you were doing in high school, if that was any different, um, do you think it would have discouraged you at all? Or do you think it only would have encouraged you more to go and find um, what you ended up finding in college?
It's a great question because, I have a lot of friends at Syracuse and also a lot of kids now who just reach out to me on social media and they say what they're doing. And not a lot of them have a program like NCTV 78. And they're like, well, I was able to build a program, I was able to start a podcast. And that's what I tell people. I tell people, go out there and make your own opportunity because it's so easy to get into sports broadcasting, whether it's just a podcast with friends or it's a simple radio stream, calling a game to yourself on your phone. It's so easy, but at the same time, when you mention it, Brian, it's so difficult to really embrace that. And when you have a program like NCTV 78 in place, it's so easy to look at older kids. It was for me it was so easy to look at older kids who were doing the Friday announcements and who were calling these games and be like, that's where I'm going to be junior, senior year if I keep working at this. So I don't know if I would have been discouraged, but I probably wouldn't have embraced it full on. And I wouldn't have decided, after my freshman year of high school, this is what I want to do. So to answer your question, if there wasn't a TV broadcasting class at my school where we live stream the sports, no, I don't think I would have known what I wanted to do at such a young age. And people say, well, you figured it out already. I got a lot of help figuring it out. I would not be where I am today if that class wasn't there, if my teacher, Roman Sobolski, didn't push me sophomore year, first week of sophomore year, and say, we need a color commentator for football. Do you want to do it? And that's really what jump started it, is him giving me that opportunity, letting me grow, giving me advice, and giving me the reps that I needed. So no, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And I don't think I'd be where I am in college today at that college if that program was not in place.
Ian Nicholas from Syracuse University and the online play-by-play voice of the Amsterdam Mohawks joining me here on Katie's Corner. I just mentioned Syracuse. We were going to talk about your college decision. Obviously, Syracuse, when it comes to broadcasting, especially sports broadcasting, obviously Syracuse and Newhouse, that's like the leading candidate that anybody really thinks of. But
Mhm.
when it came to the college decision, were there any other schools that you had right there with Syracuse that you were considering at all? Or was Syracuse like the A1? Nobody's going to touch that.
That's a good question too. And it's funny because both of my parents, they are not in sports broadcasting. They're in the hospitality business. They're both in the hotel business, but not big sports fans. But as soon as I expressed serious interest in sports broadcasting, they did a little research and they, as you mentioned, figured out pretty quickly Syracuse was the 1A for this kind of stuff. And they said, this is the Harvard of broadcasting. Why wouldn't you want to go there? And I agree with them, but at the same time, I did want to keep my options open. But, as I rounded the corner, headed in the senior year that fall, it was staring me right in the face. And I'm like, well, do I want to commit early decision or do I not? I kept lying to myself. I'm like, well, Arizona State's a great program. And it is. One of my best friends goes there. Indiana's a great program. One of my best friends goes there. Virginia Tech is a program where a former Syracuse broadcaster named Bill Roth, he's the voice of the Hokies for years. He's building up the program down there in their sports media and analytics program. And he spent time with me over Zooms and like almost kind of recruited me to go and, be a sports broadcaster within his program, which, I was an awful athlete, but to be recruited and to be praised for the work you've already done, it's like, you feel great. And I really liked Virginia Tech, although I never got the chance to go down there because I realized, if I get into Syracuse, as nice the idea of Virginia Tech is, the opportunity might be more. It's a big school. A couple of my good friends go there. Like a couple of my best friends go to Virginia Tech. If I get into Syracuse, I'm not turning that down. So I committed early decision in December and I got in and I never heard back from Virginia Tech. And that's the story. Two schools that I actually applied to, only two. I don't recommend anyone do that. Syracuse ED, Virginia Tech EA, because I was pretty confident I'd get into Virginia Tech early action. And if I didn't get into Syracuse, I think that's where I'd end up going. I think I'd do a good job down there, but the critique I get at Syracuse and all that good stuff, I would never change that decision. Syracuse is this place for me. I love it. It's cold, but for broadcasting, it's the place, cold or not.
Not a great athlete, but you still started a recruiting war a little bit for
I
yourself.
know. I was like, Dad, look at this. It's like they're treating me like they're rolling out the red carpet, giving me Zoom calls. It's awesome.
And they were all D1 schools. You're like, huh, look at this.
Yeah.
So I mean, and the resume you've been putting together just in the 2 years you've been at Syracuse. I mean, you're doing Citrus TV, WAER, Z89. I mean, the list goes on, and we'll get to your podcast because I do want to plug it, and we'll plug your podcast in a moment. But like, because I also listen to a friend of mine, Gaz, who does another show, Getting There with Gaz. He just talked with Brian Higgins, who I'm
Yeah,
sure you're well aware of,
of course.
and he talked about the schedule. Basically, look, you're up at 4:30, you're in at 5 a.m. You're doing this, that, and the other thing. Doing air checks and stuff, and you put in the work to elevate yourself through the program and earn your spots, so to speak, within the rotations that they have at Syracuse. Was it has it been very similar for you, where you had to put in those early hours, those weird hours, we'll say, and and treat it pretty much just like you were on the job, essentially, having to put in all the air checks, and basically audition for the spot that you have now within the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, even in high school, I felt like I was juggling a full-time job at some point with education, and it didn't change at Syracuse. I mean, I didn't have a typical high school experience because I invested so much of my time into an elective, and I treated it like it was my number one priority. I'd say the same thing at Syracuse. I treat Citrus TV, WAER, and Z89 radio as my 1A 1B priorities right there with education, because I know at the end of the day that is going to be what gets me hopefully hired at the end of senior year. It's the classes are unbelievable, the professors are amazing, but you need to prove you can actually call a game, host a radio show, get up in the morning and do those sports updates. You can't just say, oh, I took a class about it. So you need to be able to put that on tape. Yeah, but those 5 a.m.s, they're real, especially at WAR with the level of success they've had at producing broadcasters over the years. I mean, anyone watching the NHL, Stanley Cup right now, Sean McDonough, Mike Tirico, the face of NBC Sports. Those are just two names of an endless list of unbelievable broadcasters that have come out of there. And they've all come out of WAR. And it's because they, too, as freshmen, woke up at 4 in the morning, walked down from whatever hall they were at, in the cold in the winter sometimes, opened up that door to AER, recorded a sports update that nobody outside of their PD, which is like your upperclassman mentor, would hear, then have it grilled because, how are you going to get better outside of getting the truth and doing the same thing next week? So yeah, I worked up my way up through AER, just finished up my first year. So I was able to get promoted at AER to their second of pretty much three levels. At Z89, I was able to get cleared to their sports staff. I did both of those in February. But at February, it took all the way from, fall to February to really get a chance to really do anything on air for them. But not, in high school, I could do what I wanted when I wanted. And it was a big adjustment for me to have to work my way up, really. And it's so worth it because I looked at my first sports cast from fall compared to the one I did in February. I had no energy. I was flat. I was awful, like compared to where I think I am now. And that's just what Syracuse does for you is they make you earn it, but at the same time, they're doing it the right way. And as for Citrus TV, again, I did not go on air my first semester freshman year. I auditioned for a women's lacrosse beat reporter spot. I was able to do that this spring. Auditioned again in May. Got an analyst role in the fall. They're not going to give you host day one, regardless of if you're next, Jim Nance, Mike Tirico. They're not going to give it to you because there are people ahead of you who have put in the work and were probably just as talented as you are. So yeah, it's a tough process. It was a tough thing to adjust to, but very worth it at the end of the day.
And I mean, just it's crazy because I feel like like you mentioned, the adjustment period. Um, and something I feel like depending on what field somebody's going into and trying to accomplish when they go to college, in cases of some kids, it's big fish, small pond in high school, and then they arrive at college, and it's like this is way bigger than this is a way bigger and longer process than I maybe originally thought. And now you feel like a small fish in a big pond. So it makes a lot of sense when you put it that way. It just comes down to really, do you have the right passion, the right commitment? And obviously, it seems like you've been doing a great job with that.
No, I appreciate that. And again, I that was a big thing with Syracuse. That kind of scared me off at first. Not when I was there, but in the process of applications. I'm like, Mom, Dad, I spent a few years in high school and I've been getting rep after rep after rep, and I feel like I'm gonna be going there freshman year and I'm gonna be ready to do stuff. You know? Like if I go to one of the other colleges that I listed to you, I'm gonna be able to go in there day one and do something. At Syracuse, I've heard people don't get down there for 2 years. Like, why would I want to do that to myself? But I knew at the end of the day, people that follow this model before, recent success, a guy, Drew Carter, unbelievable talent, Noah Eagle, a couple guys who just came out of there. I mean, it just works. And, I mean, great baseball players go to the minor leagues, I guess. I don't know how to put it. I mean, there are guys who, in college sit on the bench for a few years and then they get their chance to shine. And those are at the elite level programs because we're not going to let anybody who's anybody get on there. And there are a ton of kids, as you mentioned, who don't really have that passion, unfortunately, or they love the idea of sports broadcasting, but they don't really know what they have to put into it. And, they're the same major as me. And I kind of look at them and I'm like, are you really about this? And it's super tough because college is college. You want to have fun and you want to get an education, and to commit yourself to extracurriculars so hard, it's a really difficult decision to make. Some people, they make it first day freshman year, like me and a couple of my super close friends. Other people realize it second semester freshman year. Some people, it's too little too late and they don't have enough time to really rise up the ranks in their college career. And some people, they try it out for a few days, a few weeks. They wake up at 5 a.m. a couple times and they're like, I can't do this. I can't do this. So it is really tough. You need to love this thing to do it. You need to be willing to do it for free, and you need to be able to do it where nobody's listening. And you need to be able to, put in those tough hours like Brian Higgin mentioned and like you mentioned.
Damn right. You gotta have a passion for it. You gotta be all in or all out. Like
Yep.
there's no in between because it's when you're in between that you get yourself into trouble and make mistakes that you shouldn't make. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'll just end that there. But like it's interesting because you had just mentioned it briefly earlier. When people think of Syracuse on a sports level, obviously the first things they think of are football and basketball. Those are the first two things that come to mind. They think of Don McNabb, Jim Brown. They think of Jim Boeheim, Carmelo Anthony, Jerry McNamara. They think about those faces.
Hmm.
But the program that's really been really buzzing and growing and been highly successful recently is the one that you were covering over the spring, and that's women's lacrosse. A tremendous national program. I know there's been a few kids from the capital region that have gone and played there over the last decade, including Kayla Trainer. Um, just talk about being able to cover not just any women's lacrosse program, but being able to cover one that's had as much national success as it's had recently, and just being able to stand on the sidelines and witness what they've been able to do on the field.
Oh, unbelievable. I mean, I call them the best team on campus because they are. I mean, they've been to a couple national championship games. They're always in the Final Four, Elite Eight, That's the gold standard for them. They have such a high bar. They have such a great team chemistry. And now Kayla Trainer is running the show. And I'm so happy that I was able to be the Citrus TV women's lacrosse beat reporter, kind of documenting her first year on the job. And I really thank my high school because, I know lacrosse isn't the biggest thing in the country, all around the country. It's a fast growing sport. It's really rising up there. But I come from an area of the country where, in my town, it's football and lacrosse. It's not football, basketball, football, hockey. It's big, but lacrosse. It's lacrosse country in Fairfield County, Connecticut. Our women's lacrosse team last fall was able to win the state championship game, or not the state championship, the county championship, which is just as tough as the state championship where I'm from. And that really got me the reps and got me the passion to love women's lacrosse. It really did. So when I had the opportunity to audition for the women's lacrosse beat reporter in the spring, which I heard was a pretty tough position to get for a freshman, I wanted it because I knew the sport and I knew the program was really good. And I was lucky to get it and, watch some massive games. UNC comes to town. I was able to cover that game. They won the national championship and stayed undefeated. But who gave them one of their toughest tests of the year in a 2-goal game? Syracuse did. Syracuse has gone through so much hardship over the last couple of years, injury wise. This year, they had, Emma Tyrell, Emma Ward, a couple of their best players go down in the middle of the year. They still made it to the Elite Eight. The year before that, they made it to the national championship game without their two best players on the roster, and Emily Harris-Chuck, who is from the Central New York-ish area, and Megan Carney. They went down literally, Harris-Chuck beginning of the year, Carney middle of the year, and they just had players step up. I mean, you hear so many programs say, next man up, next woman up, and it may not mean as much, but it is what it is. It is that with Syracuse women's lacrosse, because who doesn't want to play for Gary Gate, who is the head coach for a decade and a half and regarded as one of, if not the greatest lacrosse player ever? And now, who doesn't want to play for Kayla Trainer, who many regard as the best women's lacrosse player ever? I have a friend of mine from high school who goes to Northwestern, plays for their team on the women's lacrosse team. And she said, if I met Kayla Trainer, I don't know how I'd react. I'd probably faint. And I'm like, that was the first time where I was really like, yeah, she's a big deal, but is she really that big a deal? Yes, she is idolized by so many young girls who pick up growing a stick and they just see the things that she was able to do with her moves, her quickness, her stick handling, unbelievable stuff in the women's game. And she helped grow the sport so much that so many players now want to play for her. So I'm so excited to see what they do. And I hope to cover their games down the line. Although I won't be their beat reporter, hopefully I can call a couple of games for ACC Network Extra when I'm a junior or senior and see where this team goes. And hopefully they continue, and I know they will, continue to play at a high level under Coach Kayla Trainer. Women's lacrosse is a fast-growing sport. Their national championship game was just on ESPN for the first time between UNC and BC. It's really a fun sport, and it's starting to get the recognition it deserves. And I'm happy I was able to be a part of a historic transition year for the program with Kayla Trainer taking over.
Two more questions regarding college, and then we'll wrap it up with the Mohawks a little bit. First off, the podcast you became associate producer of On the Bench. Talk a little bit about that process and how you were able to get to be a part of that show.
Sure. So On the Bench is one of our 5 or 6 sports shows in the Citrus TV department. We're the longest running college sports show in the nation, and dating all the way back to the 70s, 80s, when it wasn't even called Citrus TV. We film it right in our studio. We have 2 anchors, and we kind of base it as our Syracuse sports center. And it's really the straight Syracuse sports news. I mean, we talk football, basketball, and lacrosse, but we also talk track and field, rowing, everything. We talk about every Syracuse sport under the sun. And I have such an awesome sports producing crew. I didn't really want to be a producer because my passion lies in on air. But a lot of people told me early in the semester of my fall semester, you should produce. You'd be good at it, or you should produce. Everyone else has done it. I'm like, okay, I'll throw my hat in the ring. And I got it, and I'm so happy I did because I've learned so many different things. I run video playback, and I have one friend who runs audio. I have one friend who's the executive producer, the senior producer. I mean, we're there late at night, and we're grinding for this show and trying to make it the best it can possibly be. We won the best show in the sports department, and I won best associate producer. I'm so honored to win that award, but it's such a team award because we're there till 1, 2, 3 a.m. Like, people are like, "Why are you texting me? Why are you still up?" I'm like, "Because I'm doing something I really like, and I'm helping our anchors who are juniors and seniors who are super talented get great reel material." And it looks so good, I think, at the end of the day. And it's because my friends Jared, Jesse, Phil, and Anthony, all who are super passionate and all who want to be in front of the camera too, are taking on a position where they're behind the scenes, they're the unsung heroes, and they're just making really good television. And again, it's just such an awesome thing to be a part of. I did it in the spring. I'll do it again in the fall. And I'm just so excited to do it again because my parents watch it too and they love it. Even though I'm not in front of the camera, they still realize like these kids who you had in front of the camera are great and the show looks awesome. And that's a great thing to hear. And I'm so happy that I was able to produce because now I watch sports games differently. I watch sports coverage differently now that I'm a producer. And I'm like, okay, that was an error, or that's a graphics error, or that video didn't roll in time, or this or that. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to pick that up if I wasn't a producer. So hopefully, my experience behind the scenes will help me more and more in front of the camera. And when I get into the field, I'm a bit more pro ready because I was a producer for a full year at Citrus TV, producing the longest running college sports show in the nation. So we hold ourselves to a high standard. We're usually more critical in the post shows than positive because there's always stuff we can improve on. But at the end of the day, I think we do a really good job.
Now, obviously, still a lot of time left at
Yeah.
Syracuse. And obviously, the goal would be to, move up and take on host roles or play-by-play roles and stuff of that sort. And obviously, the relationship between a lot of different colleges and ESPN with the ACC network is a huge plus for what the availability and the slots that can be filled for different broadcasts covering Syracuse athletics. As you look ahead a little bit to the next couple of years for yourself, is there a certain role you have as like this is the place I want to get to before I get out of here, or this is the specific spot I want to be in? Is there anything like that, or you just kind of taking things as they roll at this point?
It's funny because I feel like I've planned out a lot of what I wanna do with my career at Syracuse, like, because I've just watched so many great reels of kids who have recently graduated, and, I've seen that they've been able to put hosts at Citrus TV, anchor at Citrus TV. I've seen that they've been able to put, called the Syracuse football game versus Notre Dame or called the biggest football game, basketball game, Syracuse Duke basketball, and biggest lacrosse games of the year on the radio. And then I also see you mentioned the ACC Network Extra with the opportunity to call pretty much, 2 to 3 different sports across the school year that aren't nationally televised. I don't know if I have one certain goal, but I want all of it. And I know it's a lot because I know the upperclassmen, I mean, they pretty much have like, I don't know how they have a life. Like, I see like one day they'll be calling, one day they'll be doing our show. The next day, they'll be calling a softball game. The next day, they'll be, hosting a radio show for ESPN Radio. The next day, they'll be calling another game. It's like unbelievable what their schedules look like. And I look at them and I look at my fellow freshmen and I'm like, how the heck are we supposed to do that in 2 or 3 years? Like, I thought I was busy now. Like, I should not be complaining. Like, I'm a producer and I was a beat reporter. I thought that was a lot. Like, it's gonna be a lot. Like, hopefully, if I continue to put the work in and I continue to show people how much I care about it and I continue to improve, hopefully I am that busy. I think I will be, but it's just unbelievable what these upperclassmen have to handle. So play by play is my passion, and I hope to get as many reps there as possible. It will be mostly through our radio stations with WJPZ, which is also Z89 radio. We cover women's basketball, women's lacrosse, and I'd love to call as many of those games as possible. And then by senior year with WAER, I hope we're doing big time road trips for football and men's basketball and men's lacrosse. That's the great thing about these stations is they're so well funded and the leaders of the station are so on top of it and the school realizes how valuable they are to getting kids to come to Newhouse that we have this great amount of funding to go on these massive road trips go wherever we want and sit courtside some of the biggest sporting events Syracuse will play all year, or football in the press box, lacrosse in the press box. So yeah, I love play by play. I want to get as many reps there as possible. But doing more stuff in front of the camera, just like I did with my beat reporting job with the women's lacrosse team, I love hosting. I love anchoring, and I love going out on the field and doing live hits. So I'll do everything and anything. I want to continue to move up the ladder. Play by play is the goal in the future, but I love in studio hosting as well. And I want to do all of it junior, senior year. And just seeing again what these upperclassmen have to deal with. I know it's not easy to attain it, and I know it's not easy to succeed while doing it because you're always working. So yeah, it will be a challenge, but I hope I can do everything under the sun junior, senior year. And I hope I don't leave anything behind or don't explore an opportunity that needs to be explored. So hopefully I leave no stones unturned.
Yeah, as someone who spent over a decade in radio, um, the few people who have come and approached me and asked me stuff, it's like, look, a- as long as your grades are on the straight and narrow and you're not doing anything stupid behind the scenes, having a life can't wait until you get through the 4 years. You could
Yep.
you could go and start having a life once you're making money and you can afford to schedule time for yourself. Otherwise,
Mhm.
just keep your nose down and just keep grinding. That's the best way. And it seems like
100%.
you obviously have that mentality, so that's great. Um, real quick before we let you go, I let you go. Um, the Mohawks, winners of 8 of their first 9. Obviously, you mentioned at the beginning they are going to be on the road in Glens Falls tonight before back-to-back home games Friday and Saturday. I mean, first off, how did being a part of the Mohawks come about? And secondly, how do you feel so far after the first few weeks of the season, and being around the team, the players, and Coach Griffin, who seems to have his own language of his own?
You can say that again. He's a great guy, though. So I got to thank Syracuse for this one as well. A senior in the fall. His name is Brad Klein. He was the broadcaster. Yep, and I can see by your reaction you're familiar. Brad was my PD at WAR. He will tell you how it is. He was the guy who I really needed to tell me that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Keep it up though. And he was the guy who was super honest with me and helped me develop at WAR when I first started, just about a little under a year ago. And he also did, WJPZ, and he also did Citrus TV. And December of my freshman year, I was helping out with On the Bench during his last show of that semester. And he taps me on the shoulder and he says, "Hey, can you come outside for a second?" I'm like, "Okay." So he's like, "What are you doing this summer?" And I said, "Well, I could go back and I do some running for NBC Sports. I could do that, but I know I have to get better in front of the camera or broadcasting this summer." So that was a fallback, really. Although I love NBC Sports, an awesome, awesome, awesome business, but I need the reps right now, and I know that's what everyone's telling me: reps, reps, reps. So he said, "I did the Mohawks for 2 years. It's a great team. I think you'd be a great fit for them." And I feel like I kind of like shown Brad that again, I showed him that passion, I showed him my work ethic, and he kind of rewarded me by telling me about this and pretty much saying, "Well, I know General Manager Brian Spagnola, and I'd put in a good word for you, and I think you'd be able to get the job." And it was as simple as that. I talked with Brian a couple of times over the phone. He seemed like an amazing guy. My parents at first were a bit perplexed because they had never heard of Amsterdam, and I'm an only child, so they were like, "Well, we'd love to have you home for the summer." And now you're going to be gone for a whole 2 months doing baseball in the middle of Amsterdam. And I'm like, "Yep." And I know it's right for me. And to kind of prove it to them, I called Bruce Beck and I was like, "Bruce, do you think I should do this?" And he said, "Yep, reps are the way to go. This is a perfect opportunity for you." And I thought it was a great fit. So that's how it came about. And, I've been here for the past couple of weeks. My mom and I visited when I got home from Syracuse in early May to Shuttleworth Park just to get a look see. And it's been great. I mean, it's easier to cover a winning team than a losing team, but this team has been more than just a winning team. I mean, they're unbelievable. I mean, I knew they kind of were the number one team in the PGCBL, but looking at the way they play, looking at the way they've dominated, it's been so fun because they can beat you in so many different ways. And the best part about this team is everybody cares about them. Like, I didn't know what kind of reception or what kind of audience we'd have. And the games are absolutely packed. The atmosphere is amazing, and people online care about it. I mean, we do our streams on Facebook Live, and they have like almost 1,000 views a night. And I'm like, okay, like people are actually listening to what I'm doing. Like, I am doing this so at the end of the day, I not only get better, but I have a bit of real material to show people and get critiqued at the end of the summer. But what I'm doing matters. Like, it's not only just the parents of the players who are watching. People in this community care so much about this team. Little kids want to play for this team when they are older. They literally are begging players for autographs before, in the middle, and after games. They love the Mohawks, and why shouldn't they? 8 straight wins to start the year. And again, I said they do it all. I mean, they pitch. They have an unbelievable pitching staff. They can really hit when they need to, and they have guys who are, from community colleges and JUCOs who are dominant, trying to elevate their game. They have guys from, big SEC schools who are just getting their start and are also trying to improve through summer ball. So I'm absolutely pumped to be here. Calling radio baseball really for the first time has been not, I don't know if a challenge, but I've really embraced it. And I'm starting to fall in love with baseball play by play more and more, because I told you earlier, football was my one, basketball was my two. The only reason I like baseball recently is because my two best friends at Arizona State and Indiana are baseball guys, and I travel with their summer baseball team playing their walk-up songs. And that's how I fell in love with a game of baseball over the last couple of summers, asking the dumb questions because I literally did not know what I was talking about. And, them being like, how do you not know that? How do you not know that? How do you not know that? But now I'm starting to put it together, and I'm happy I'm putting it together with a team that is going to provide great storylines, and hopefully at the end of July, early August, is ready to win their 8th or 7th PGCBL title under Coach Griffin. He's a great guy, and I haven't really engaged with him or the players too much yet. I mean, I do live with one of the players, but with my host family. But I love this team. I love the organization. Everybody is so kind, so appreciative of the work that I'm trying to put in to highlight their guys and to highlight these guys who are trying to move up in the world, in the baseball world. And it's been a long couple of weeks dealing with technical problems and such, but it's been worth it because this team is such a great team, and they're going to be here for a long, long time doing what they do under Keith Griffin. And I can't wait to see what the summer brings.
Real quick, number one, when you say your parents didn't know anything about Amsterdam, it's okay because you ask anybody, you ask anybody else I've ever stayed in New York, they know Albany, they know Syracuse, everything between is just kind of a blur.
Brian, people thought I was going to Amsterdam, the country.
Right, right.
I
I
mean,
mean,
people are like, it's like, what? You're going to where? I'm
it,
like, hold on,
yeah,
settle down.
yeah,
I'm only 3 hours away. I'm not a plane away, but
right. Time out.
yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't shock me. It's okay. Uh, and I'll just wrap saying this. So at the home games, for those of you who uh don't go, first of all, shame on you. If you're in the area, you should go. But second of all, they recently renovated things at Shuttleworth to where now where I do the PA announcing and we have the scoreboard and music done, instead of it being up top above the grandstand, now it's right at the top of the grandstand area and right next door to where you are. And um, it may not seem it, but I do listen. I do pay attention, and from what I've been seeing and hearing, you've been doing a great job so far. So
thank you.
keep up the great work. Obviously, I'll be keeping an eye on you beyond just this season because
Mm.
maybe we got the next Noah Eagle or
Oh, come
coming out
on.
very soon. So I know you don't have iron, you know, so
I did meet him, and I'm like, well, I'm Ian, you're Ian. You really screwed me up there. And he's like, I don't know, man. He's awesome. I met him for like 5 seconds at my broadcasting camp. Awesome guy. But yeah,
yeah. I mean, who says iron? No, I'm kidding.
literally, no.
It just screwing things up all the way
All right.
around. But Ian, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I really do. Thank you. And I guess I'll see you in like 30 hours, something like that.
Something like that. I mean, who's counting? But back-to-back home games Friday and Saturday from Shuttleworth doesn't get much better than that, Brian. I'll see you then. Thank you so much for having me on.
Damn right, not a problem, Ian. I'll see you around. Ian Nicholas, rising star at Syracuse University, doing his thing, helping out the Amsterdam Mohawks, doing their online play-by-play. Again, it's if you want to check out the schedule, go to AmsterdamMohawks.com or follow Amsterdam Mohawks on Facebook, or at Mohawks Baseball on Twitter. Try to plug that as much as possible because I'm all about the Twitter machine. And yeah. And worst case scenario, if you can't make it out to a game, just listen to Ian and you can watch the video of the live action on Facebook because we're all about that. Let's get into checking out our partners over at Mohawk Honda in Scotia, Glenville. The supply chain still facing challenges, which is creating opportunity for you to sell your vehicle or trade it in for something new. And at Mohawk Honda, the team can find what you're looking for by searching their lot, excuse me, or they can search up and down the entire Eastern Seaboard to figure out what will work your budget and your lifestyle. And the opportunity to do that is right now. As right now, Mohawk Honda buying cars. In some cases, you may be able to sell your vehicle for more than you paid for it. So just go check them out. Go visit our friends, Cars with Kern, Svoboda. Go talk to Trav Landry, Luisa VIP Man Morales, my dude C Mac, Cam McKenna, or just go talk to the man in charge. Go talk to GM Greg Johnson, and they will hook you up and make sure you get the best deal possible over at Mohawk Honda, Freeman's Bridge Road in Scotia, where they always go out of their way to please you. That all being said, real quick, just because we went along with Ian, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the MLB, but real quick, Red Sox, winners of 11 of their last 13. Um, Devers comes up clutch in their win on Sunday over the weekend. Only two bad things I saw coming out of what happened uh, over the last week. Number one, people probably want to complain about Robles blowing the save over the weekend on Saturday, but you have to mention it was his third straight day pitching. Sometimes there's guys that just can't handle 3 days in a row, so you can't really put too much into that. The second thing, Nathan Eovaldi going on the IL, 15-day IL for lower back inflammation. Just got to hope it's not something that hurts him long term and progressively hurts him throughout the course of the season. Hopefully, these couple weeks off help him out because that rotation has been doing really good things. And you take a look at this Red Sox team, they've put themselves in a prime position now where, yeah, they're 12 and a half back of the Yankees. And honestly, who wouldn't be at this point the way they've been playing? But they're only 3.5 back of Toronto for a wild card for the first wild card spot, and a game and a half back of Tampa Bay for the second wild card slot. So the Red Sox have rebounded very nicely and put themselves in prime contention to be there as they get closer to the postseason, the dog days of summer to figure out the postseason. Now, before we get into the Mets or the Yankees and talking about them, the New York Baseball segment is brought to you by our friends over at Johnstone Supply in Troy. Summer's here. You can feel the heat in upstate New York. Might be a little cooler the next couple of days because of the rain that's come through. But if you want to stay cool all summer long indoors, call our friends at Johnstone Supply in Troy. Ask the team about their high efficiency central AC systems and ductless mini splits. Goodman, Fujitsu, Westinghouse, all in stock, all great brands at great prices. If you need someone to help install the new system, Johnstone Supply in Troy, they are the dudes to get it done, whether it be Tom, Kev, James, Bird, whoever it may be. Give them a call to make sure you stay cool indoors throughout the summer. It's 518-272-5922, or check them out at 2600 6th Avenue in Troy. Again, 518-272-5922. You can also check them out online at johnstonesupply.com. Mets, you can't believe this if I told you. Record-setting pace for hit batsmen in a season. The record was set last year by the Reds with 105 hit batsmen. Nobody else has had more since the year 1900. So, yeah. Mets are on pace for about 107, 108. Marte, day-to-day after getting hit by a pitch last night, speaking of that, they're saying it's a contusion, I believe, on his wrist or his hand. So hopefully the swelling goes down. He'll be back in action. Probably going to sit out tonight against Milwaukee as we're recording this Thursday, June 16th. But hopefully we get to see him back some point during the 4-game set over the weekend. The extended 4-game set over the weekend against the Marlins at Citi Field. As for the Yankees, first team to win 44, their first 60 games since 2001. Problem being that was the Seattle Mariners, and they lost the ALDS to the Yankees. So Not the best statistic to bring up, but hey, it is what it is. The Yankees are now 46 and 16. Um, just ridiculous right now. Um, However, just a note that when they started this series that they're going to wrap up tonight against Tampa Bay, they started on Tuesday. It was the beginning of a set of 20 games in 20 days. No days off until the 4th of July. Literally the 4th of July. So it's going to be a crazy time for them right now, but they just, that's the way the schedule works out sometimes. You just got to grind, 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 get through the long extended parts of the season so you can get to that day off. But on the plus side, Aaron Judge, third player in New York Yankees history to have 25 plus home runs in his first 60 games played of a season. The other two guys to do that, just some dudes named Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle. No big deal. Um, the one thing I will say, and I know I've mentioned this name before, but I'm going to mention it again. Go save Andrew Benintendi from Kansas City. Send them Joey Gallo in an arm. I've loosened up on Aaron Hicks just because of how he's played the last couple weeks. So I'm not as gung ho about getting rid of Hicks as I was before. Still an option, though. We'll still wait and see. However, we'll just wait and see on that. So yeah, so the schedule coming up for all three teams. Boston, as of when this hits, as of when this uploads and is available for everyone to hear or listen to, hear or see. My bad. My my verbs are bad right now, or adjectives, whatever. The Boston, they have their finale of their Oakland series at 1:30 this afternoon. Then they'll host the Cardinals for 3, followed by the Tigers for 3 at Fenway. So a nice extended homestand for the Red Sox. Meanwhile, the Mets, like I mentioned earlier, they play tonight against the Brewers, host Miami for 4 games through Monday. Then they go and visit the Astros for a quick 2-game set Tuesday, Wednesday. And then finally, the Yankees wrapping up their series against Tampa Bay tonight at Yankee Stadium before hitting the road for 3 up in Toronto and then visiting Tampa Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this coming week. Yeah, that pretty much does it. We'll have more stuff to get into. There is some non-Yankee, non-Met, non-Red Sox stuff to touch on, but obviously we're up against it. A little extended time here. But thanks to Ian Nicholas, terrific interview, terrific young man. Great to see what he's been doing so far with the Mohawks, and hope that he keeps moving on up to the east side. Uh, don't forget, hey, follow me on Twitter at Brian Cady, BrianCady. Comments, questions, concerns, Brian.Cady at GodzillaMedia.com. Special thanks again to our friends at SeatGeek, Mohawk Honda, and Johnstone Supply for sponsoring this program. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Don't forget, if you're checking out the audio side of this on Spotify or Google Play, give us a rating, subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching this on the Godzilla Media YouTube page, click the like button, subscribe to Godzilla Media so you can get notifications about all the different podcasts we have here and when they hit the air, whether it be M across the board, my wrestling podcast, White Heat, this one, Katie's Corner, Getting There with Gaz, any of the Levac and Gaz live streams, tremendous family of shows here at Godzilla Media. That being said, that is episode 11 of Katie's Corner. Thank you very much for tuning in. Until then, happy baseball.